Hey guys, welcome to the channel, and what we have for you today is the best settings that you can use for a great audio video experience with your PS5 and your current TV. Now let's say you have a flagship TV that can do 4K at 120 Hz with HDR and Dolby Vision. What are the settings that you can use to get the best experience from your PS5? Similarly, if you have a brand new soundbar that boasts of Dolby Atmos or DTS:X, then which are the settings you should use? I am basically going to run through the best audio video settings not only for consuming content on your console but playing games, and what settings you should change if you are playing in a brightly lit room and if you're playing in a dark room as well. One more thing to note is that the PS5 has gotten a bunch of updates, and this video is made after the latest update where it got support for Dolby Atmos and 8TB storage of expansion, etc. The PS5 does support variable refresh rate and 1440p resolution. So in case you're someone that has a monitor, I've touched upon those points as well. So watch this video and let me know if these tips to get the best audio video experience from your PS5 was helpful. So like I said, what we are going to talk about are audio and video settings that you should change when you are connecting your PS5 to a TV. Now, while I have an OLED TV out here, I am going to talk about certain settings that you should change if you are on a budget TV. So let's get started by going into the settings on the top right corner, and we're going to start with some video settings. So screen and video settings. And the first thing you do is you can always check your resolution if it is supporting 4K, if it supports RGB, HDR, or just whether it can give you HDR output or not. And in some cases, what will happen even on high-end TVs is it may show you that the HDR is off. And I have another video on the TV settings that you need to change. Basically, you need to go into your picture settings and switch on HDMI Ultra Deep Color so that your TV is getting HDMI 2.1 output, as you can see out here with this TV, and it is on for the input. In some cases, even on Sony TVs, this is switched off, especially if it's an older Sony TV. But newer Sony TVs do generally tend to switch game mode on when you connect a PS5. Having said that, you guys should definitely go and check out that video where I have spoken in detail about TV settings. Now, when it comes to HDR, if you are on a budget TV, I would highly recommend that you try playing without HDR. There are some times when you can switch it off also. If you want, you can leave it always on, but I leave it as on when supported, because this will essentially ensure that when HDR is supported, the games will run in HDR. Else, you can switch it off. And I highly recommend, if you are on a budget TV, try playing some games with HDR switched off. Trust me, you will in a lot of cases get a much better experience. But this is where you should do it fairly often, is adjust the HDR. And as you can see, you basically need to adjust it until this little sun symbol is barely visible. And what I do is I keep clicking until it is absolutely invisible, and then sometimes I click 1 or 2 points down. Now, one of the advantages of this is that you really don't get a lot of clipping, or the image doesn't look very burnt out in that case. When it comes to darkness, now if you have an OLED TV, I think you should do this twice. Once when you're gaming in a brightly lit room, and if you're switching off all the lights, then you should do it again as well. As you can see, even though this is an OLED, the black levels are not exactly at 0, and that's because I'm in a bright room right now. If I were to switch off all the lights and go in a dark room, then I would put this at 0. But since I'm in a bright room, I want some of the elements to be visible, and hence I need the black levels to be slightly more elevated, and I put it at a point where I can genuinely barely see the symbol. Trust me, this makes the world of a difference on an OLED TV, especially when you are in day and night situations, which is when you have ambient light in the room or a light switched on, and of course when you're playing in pitch darkness. Deep color output, I recommend you leave this at automatic. RGB range, again, you should leave this as automatic. You can keep it at full if you have one of the high-end HDMI 2.1 TVs, but just in the interest of convenience, I leave it at automatic. Coming up now, ALLM and 4K transfer rates, again, leave these at automatic. If you have a 120 Hz display, again, you can leave this at automatic. There's no option to keep it on all the time. But when a game is supported like Ratchet & Clank or Spider-Man, where you can get 40 FPS instead of 30 FPS at some modes, is also helpful. VRR, again, at automatic, and I recommend leaving the apply to unsupported games as off, as this just generally will give you a better experience. Now, My current video output is at 4K with RGB HDR with HDCP 2.3. However, you can of course get information about other resolutions. So let's say if you have a 1440p monitor, I highly recommend you go and change the resolution to 1440p. Similarly, if you have a 1080p TV or a 1080p monitor, because that will just give you a better experience. Or you could actually leave it at a high resolution to get a super sampled image. If you really want to know the details of what is a super sampled image, you can let me know in the comment section below, and I will do my best to either answer it there or create a video. So this is what I recommend you should do if you are taking care of the visual settings. Now let's move over to audio. Now audio is more fairly simple. You go into the audio settings and an audio output. Right now I have left it to the TV because that is probably where some of you will be using it. And you should leave the switch output device automatically, which means basically if I go into the settings and I switch on my soundbar out here, it should automatically change the settings to the soundbar once the soundbar comes on. If that doesn't happen, like my soundbar has come on right now, and as you can see, sometimes this doesn't really happen immediately unless you get into a game or whatever, I can always go in and change the output to my soundbar, and it will show that the output has shifted to my soundbar. I've of course kept the volume a little low because right now I am recording. And of course you can change the number of channels if you have an amplifier connected to your TV. And if you guys want to know the amplifier settings, you can let me know and I will do my best to get those as well. For now though, I'm going to switch this back to the TV, and I am going to go and switch my audio output also back to the internal TV speakers, just because that's what we've been using for the sake of this video. Audio format priority. Now this is very important because recently Sony has sent out an update that lets you get Dolby Atmos output, especially from 3D audio devices. Now what I do is I leave it at linear PCM because I have a 2.1 soundbar and I'm either using the 2.1 soundbar or the television. You can check out my equipment in my YouTube channel. I have the Yamaha YS209. Having said that, I would highly recommend you keep changing the settings based on what you are using. So if you have a Dolby Atmos soundbar, I suggest you give this a try. If you have a general 2.1 soundbar, you can give Dolby Audio a try. DTS, if you have a DTS compatible TV or soundbar, then you can definitely give DTS a try. It's basically quite subjective to see which format works best for you. Audio, in my opinion, is very subjective because what works for me may not work for you. However, having said that, if you aren't sure of what to leave it on, leave it at linear PCM. That is basically uncompressed format, and it will give you the best audio output. You can also, of course, enable 3D audio for your TV speakers. I have found that this really hasn't changed much of my experience. So it's a hit or miss whether you change these settings and it works for you or not. Let me know in the comment section below and I will definitely try it. And of course, enabling 3D audio for headphones is also there. And this is one more thing I want to show you. So before we get in there, I'm just going to connect my headphones here so you know that it has to be kind of connected, and the enable 3D audio has happened, and mine is the typical 3 default profile. But what I recommend is when you are changing these, you should put on your headphones and close your eyes. Now Sony has made changes to this UI over the past couple of years, which means that now you can press the left or the right to hear the sound from the left or the right ear cup itself, and you can also press the triangle button to check the different sound profiles of when 3D audio is on and off, and this just gives you a much better experience of judging which profile works best for you. In my case, for some reason, the type 3, which is the default, really worked the best in my case, but this may be different for you, and there have been some changes to this UI. So if you haven't changed your 3D audio profile in a while, I highly recommend you give this a shot. So there you have it, guys. Those were just some of the audio and video settings I recommend you change based on the TV that you have. Once again, I am going to reiterate the fact that if you have a budget HDR TV or you feel the HDR performance of your gaming is lackluster, then you should definitely consider switching HDR off. It will give you a much better experience on budget HDR TVs. If you have a flagship HDR TV, you can keep it on when supported. So thank you so much, guys, for watching this video, and for more from the world of technology, home entertainment and gaming, you can subscribe to the channel. We will catch you in another video. It's goodbye for now.